have mercy, look at how the time goes.
And welcome everybody to the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. Hello, Bar Scott.
Hi, John Allen.
How you doing?
How are you this morning? We've already talked a little, but we're both a little weary this morning. I think the whole planet is weary.
The whole planet is weary. It's a lot. There's so much going on, and if you have any kind of a heart, if you're any kind of a thinking and caring person, you are affected by what's going on in the United States. It can't be helped.
Well, and actually, sort of beyond that, obviously the things that are happening here are, I don't even know the word. I want to say devastating, but it's almost like it's more complex than devastating. But the pandemic around the world and people hurting and suffering and dying and ill and everything, and then couple it with this, it almost makes sense that we would tip over into this kind of crazy place we're in now. But I want to hear your voice. I gotta say, I'm sitting here thinking, oh man, I gotta talk to you, John.
Well, and likewise, and just so people know, I respect people's time. I always expect people to respect my time, and I respect other people's time. And it's not my thing to be late to such an important appointment like this, but things are in a whirlwind right here.
Yes. Yes.
And again, I apologize.
So can I jump in?
Do that,
and explain
please.
Why you're apologizing, so that you don't have to.
Do that. That would be a good idea.
Okay, good. So John, as you all know, who are fans of his, has been doing his podcast, and his last week's podcast number 28, which I have not yet heard, but I know exists and plan on listening to today, is his voice around the situation in the United States, and the media is coming to him this morning, and so we got started a little late, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to do what you're doing. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, first of all, for being patient and sticking around while I was almost a half hour late. So thank you for that, and I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who made that podcast episode number 28 reach the media here in Norway. I'm humbled. I really am. It was for me, it was a therapeutic type of thing. For those who haven't heard it, it was like Bar said, it was just me telling people what I think should be done, what can be done to keep this momentum going, because I think we are in there's some movement happening now.
Yes, finally. Yes.
And you can see that in the streets. Forget about the rioters. Let's talk about the protesters. To me, as much tragedy as there is in the death of George Floyd, I see some beauty in the protesters. I have never seen so many white faces in a modern when I say modern, I'm talking about post-civil rights era. Protest for equality. I've never seen so many white faces, and to me, that is a beautiful thing. And I don't want to sound patronizing, but when we look at the situation that we're in, the juice in my podcast episode was that we need more non-Black Americans to stand up and start shouting out and start making a difference.
I totally agree.
And I think it's happening now. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see. I get emotional.
Me too.
I was on that radio interview earlier, and I almost broke down on air talking about it, because it's such a juxtaposition of emotions. The anger and the frustration and the pain is being met by a feeling of joy and hope, because I see the makeup of the protesters, and to me that's so promising.
Yes, because I think one of the important points is that, yes, the African American community, the Black community here and around the world in many places has felt this, decades, centuries long pain. And so many of us have felt our version of that same thing. I mean, there's a huge loss for all of us that any population is oppressed.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of people that understand that it's not just a question of helping the Black community survive and thrive, but also the white community will survive and thrive if we're all doing good work.
The United States is only as good as its weakest demographic.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
So if the weakest of us are lifted up, it's going to lift up the entire nation. It's really simple. It really is a simple thought. It is.
Yes. So complex to accomplish, but
but the thought itself, the concept itself is very simple. So if people can gather around that simple thought, we have the knowledge, we have the ability to make those difficult commitments that will lead to change. But the thought itself is simple. And to see people try and water that down or drown it out by focusing on the rioters instead of focusing on the reason why there are protests to begin with.
Right.
And then doing something about it.
Sorry, I got a little distracted there. I had my email closed, and then when we got late, I was trying to keep everything open, so everything's dinging over here.
And Bar, just so you know, if from time to time I'll be looking down, but that's only because I'm making a notation to make sure I don't forget a thought. Yeah.
Good. Same with me.
So how are you experiencing? I'm not sure where you live. Are you in a rural area?
No, I'm in a small city called Corvallis, Oregon, which is sort of smack in the middle between Portland and Eugene. And it's new for me. We moved here a year ago, but I grew up in Philadelphia suburbs and then moved to New York, moved to Manhattan, Brooklyn, Woodstock, New York, then to very, very rural Colorado. Extremely rural, and for 10 years, and then we moved here about a year ago. So we've been on the move. So Oregon, I don't know Oregon well, so I don't know exactly what the history is, but I do know it's the whitest state in the country.
Yeah.
And I do know it has a not entirely wonderful history in terms of racism and the Klan and whatever. I don't want to say too much because I don't actually know it well, but that's
that rhymes with what I know of history in Oregon. Yeah.
Yes. So here I am living in a predominantly white city. If there is a mix of cultures here. There's a Muslim community here that's pretty obvious. There's a very real Asian community that's obvious. So it isn't just white, but there is a big Black community here.
Okay. Yeah.
But Sunday night, so just in terms of the local scene here, Sunday night there was a rally that we heard of, and we had mixed feelings about going because. It was hot by then. Everything was, things were really heated, and we just didn't want to give supremacists a place to express themselves and then blame it on riot, that whole thing.
Yeah.
But then we decided we'd just light some candles ourselves at our home because we were very quiet. It's a very inward time for me, and I know many others. So we just lit some candles in unity while the rally was going on, but there was so much volume coming from the city about 12 blocks from here. And this is a city of 60,000 when the 30,000 or 25,000 students at Oregon State are here.
Okay.
But they're not. So it's a quiet city right now. And we could hear these, these applause and stuff. By the time we got down there, because of course it was compelling to go by then, and we, sort of our mood had changed. When we got there, there were about 1,000 white faces, mostly white, student age, taking a knee. And it was very beautiful to see.
And that is what I'm talking about. Those are the scenes, those are the images that have really, really moved me over the last few days. Can you just hold on one second? Sure. This is the TV station calling.
Yes.
This is just going to be part of the podcast. Hello, Gunhay. This is John. Hi. I'm right in the middle of a podcast, actually. I can send you a text message with my wife's phone number. Would you mind talking with her now?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll send you a text message, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Coming up right now, okay? Yeah, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. So we're just going to let that be part of the podcast. This is, we're capturing the moment as it is. I just need to send this kind producer a text message so that she can correspond with my lovely wife, the lovely Snoopy, who you're probably going to meet before this podcast is over. I asked her to come in and say hi.
Oh, good.
Let's see. There we go.
So while John's texting this producer, for those of you in Norway, you're going to see him on TV on Tuesday morning, I think, if I've got the information correct.
Yeah, Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning on Good Morning Norway is the name of the show.
Yay.
To translate it into English. So that is so surreal. And I didn't mean for this podcast episode to be about that in any way, but I don't even know how to express myself. It is so surreal. All of this media attention just fell into my lap. I've never experienced anything like it before. And it just fell into my lap. All of these different news media sources contacting me like this all in one day, just in the last few hours. It's amazing.
So can I take on the interviewer role for just a moment?
Please.
Because it's so important what's happening to you and to your community and also the world. So how do you feel about your responsibility and your voice? How clear are you about what you need to say and all that?
I'm very clear on what I need to say, because what I need to say is just what I feel in my heart, the anger, the frustration, but the hope as well. I have very strong opinions on what I think needs to be done to continue this movement, because it is a movement that has started now. And I the timing of it all, if I go back 6 months ago, I never thought I would have a podcast. It was something that had been discussed between me and Snoopy. She's been pushing me for a long time to do something like this, and I just was never interested. And then my son died, and everything was just put on hold. But I started this podcast. When was it? It was the end of February, the last week of February, and I looked at it as something to do, something new to do, a new challenge to try and so I could compartmentalize my grief about my son. Let me start something new. I'll have something new to focus on, and that means less time being depressed about the death of my son. That's the main reason. I don't think I've ever said that before, but that's the main reason why I started this podcast, just to have a new distraction. And now, as I've gone along, and I've gotten more and more listeners, I've gotten more and more interesting guests with a lot of interesting things to say. And all of a sudden, I realize it's not just a podcast; it's a platform. Mm-hmm. And yes. I don't think about my situation. I don't really look at myself from the outside looking in. I'm just living in the moment. But They told me on TV, these TV producers, when they were talking with me earlier today, they told me that I am interesting to them because I'm sitting in a position where I have a platform. I'm very different in that I am a Black American, and there's not many of us over here in Norway. But not only am I a Black American, I'm also a former cop.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, I worked for 7 years in the Chicago suburbs.
Wow.
Right up until I moved here to Norway, I was a police officer. And so I've never thought of it, but they made me aware of the fact that I have a very interesting viewpoint. Kind of like I have a dual loyalty in their eyes. That's the words they use. I don't look at it as a loyalty thing. But I have a platform, and I'm using it now. I don't want every episode to be me ranting about the situation back home in the States. I want to have, episodes like this where I can talk to a fantastic musician who I respect and who I'm looking forward to becoming better friends with. I want to have those kind of things too. I can't forget up in all of this that I am also a stand-up comedian. So I want to have fun. I want to be funny sometimes on my podcast, but everything in its place. So with that episode, that episode 28 that everybody seems to be latching onto, that was my moment to use my platform for the cause.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it looks like that was the right thing to do, because now I get to go on national TV here and I can speak to the whole country, or at least those who are watching that show, and and put some knowledge out there and make my call to action even bigger.
Right. Well, I'm partly asking because I feel like as an artist, the question of what my role is here as an artist, not as a walking person, but as a person who creates and has a public forum, what is my role, and do I even have a role? And it's the challenge that I offer to myself is I don't want to step out of line. I don't want to be untrue to myself. I don't want to suddenly become this person that I'm not. In other words, the integrity of my person is ultimately the most important thing.
Sure, absolutely.
So what is that going to be? What is that going to be? And so here you are. You did the honest thing. You did exactly what your heart was telling you to do.
Yeah.
And it is the right thing to do. And for me, like when I think about what the right thing to do is, and this is the message I'm getting from my Black friends here in the States, who I'm actually asking, what should I do? Point blank, what should I do? And every single one of them has said, please keep singing. What can I say about that? Like for me, I sort of feel like, well, gosh, is that enough? Like just posting little ditties. I started posting little songs from my bike and my roller skates and walking or whatever, and singing along when the pandemic started. And for me, it was a big deal to have that much courage to be that raw. Like that was the challenge to me. How can I sing without lights and microphones and sound people and feel good about myself? It's out of tune, it's out of time, whatever it is, it's rough. And sure enough, that's what people are responding to. And that's happening around the world with other musicians and artists that are just putting stuff out from their living room. I think it's wonderful.
I think it's beautiful, and it brings so much comfort to people. I can speaking for myself, I truly enjoyed seeing you put those, riding your bike and just singing. And I think I wrote to you a couple of times, oh my gosh, I haven't heard that song in years. And and what was one of the most moving songs that you have in your catalog? And forgive me, but I cannot remember the name of it. It was the piano rendition that you did. What is that? What is that?
It's called Love is the Reason.
Love is the Reason. Good Lord, what a song. And
thank you very much.
So it was things like that you were doing that for me anyway brought, you sit around and you might be bored or depressed and you're inside and oh my gosh, COVID-19, and then you flip through Facebook and then you see a performance like that from you. That is so healing, and it took my thoughts off of any depressing issues that I may have been thinking about, took my mind off of that for the rest of the evening.
Good.
That's medicine. There's a medicinal therapeutic
so
effect.
Interesting. For me, I don't know how you feel as a songwriter. I assume your listeners know you also write songs and have this beautiful singing voice.
Oh, thank you.
We do these things, and we're. I haven't thought this through quite clearly, but. There's so much pressure to make it just so, or get it, whatever, just so. I'll just leave it that. And then you just do it, and you don't really know whether anybody gets it. You don't know if people are responding, and you feel a little self-conscious. You feel inadequate. You're questioning yourself. You're saying, "I stink at this. I should give up." All that stuff, and you just don't know. And quite often. you put something out that you think is great, and it's the thing that people don't respond to, and then you put out the thing that's kind of weakish from your point of view, and people go, oh,
yeah.
And it's so interesting to me to sort of say, oh, well, gosh, I can do that all the time. If you like that, that's easy. I can just do that. And it's so, it just is such an education.
Absolutely.
For me. Oh, my goodness. And
Absolutely.
I'm so grateful. So grateful. Here I am, 62 years old, and I'm just getting it that just singing is enough. Like I don't have to do all these other things. And also, I mean, just getting older and saying, I don't care how many people hear it. I just need to do it.
Do you do it mostly for yourself in the initial phase? I do.
You mean right now? Yes. Right now, I certainly do.
Yeah.
And I would say generally I do, but I also am really aware as an artist that I need an audience, and not like a applauding audience, not that sort of thing. I just need that circle. I need reception. I need feedback. I need that.
Yeah, I understand that. Now, because all these shoulder operations that I've talked about that on just about every podcast episode, but I've had so many shoulder operations, and I'm still healing from the last operation that I had last May. So it has really cut down my ability to perform. 10, 15 minutes with a guitar or at the keyboards, and I'm finished. Just that position of having my arm, it just doesn't work. So I've been expressing myself through stand-up comedy, but that stopped when the COVID situation came.
Yes.
But then after a couple of weeks, I started getting requests. I started getting potential bookings to do live streaming of stand-up, and I had to say no because I need an audience. Just like you said, I have to, and it doesn't have to be a crowd of, thousands. It just has to be some sort of a crowd, some sort of an audience giving me some sort of feedback.
Yes. Have you been watching, do you watch Stephen Colbert at all?
I watch little clips of it. That's actually not available here in Norway. So I do go on YouTube from time to time and look at clips of his show. Yeah.
Yes. And that's how I watch him too. And it's been so interesting to see his evolution as a host, as a comedian. And he's when he started his at-home broadcasts, you sort of thought, oh boy, Stephen, this can be hard.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still great, but you could just see that he was struggling. And now he's got it. He's gotten into his flow and all that stuff.
Well, this situation has forced artists across the board, regardless of what kind of art it is, it's forced them to grow.
Yeah.
Either they're growing or they're taking a long break.
Which is growing. Yeah. Which is growing.
Well, okay. I mean, how so? That's interesting.
Well, for me, it's really important to remember this, for me personally, to remind myself that in those periods of nothing, where, you just don't feel like creating anything, you have nothing to say, nothing interesting is happening when you put your hands on the piano or pick up your guitar or whatever. It's been proven to be over and over and over again that those periods are critical for rest, for new life to come in, for just chilling out. Like, stay away from it because you're pushing. In my case, it's often because I'm pushing too hard. I want something more than the time is allowing.
Yeah.
That the universe is not saying this is the time, but I'm saying this is the time. And so there's resistance. And it's much better if I just let that happen. Just be empty, be null.
You have to be comfortable with that emptiness. And I am, for me, it's a two-folded thing. On the one hand, when it comes to my own work, my own solo project, if you will, I accept when I have periods of zero production. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But where it gets stressful, because is where I write for others, and they need a song, and then I have to. Now, that used to be a big problem when I first started doing that, but I have learned, because I don't want anything that has to do with music, with my writing process. I don't want it to be stressful. So I've told the people that I write for, or anyone who approaches me for a song, I tell them, make sure that you are in the early stages of your project, because I cannot have a timeline. I can't do that. It has to just come. I can't force it. I could force it, and they may like it, but I have to feel. I have to feel some authenticity in that writing process. I cannot force it. I can't do that, and it may have turned away a few writing gigs that I could have had, but so be it, because I have to keep that authenticity for myself. There's a little bit of
Yes, integrity.
Integrity.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people would call that selfishness. So be it. Maybe I am writing for myself, but I don't think that's selfish. It's about integrity. I have to.
No, I don't. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I am different on that level. First of all, what a thrill to be asked to write a song. I've only been asked to write a song once. And
really,
so I don't have that experience that you're talking about.
Really, with your enormous talent,
it's never happened. Well, thank you. You're very, very sweet.
And I'm just talking true. I'm just talking true.
No, thank you. A friend of mine in London, who's been a pal of mine forever and ever, a music lawyer, but mostly friend, wrote to me sort of at the last minute, and she was putting together a collection of songs about. It was appropriate to the time right now, where the theme was walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And I can't remember what was happening at the time, because it's about 5 or 6 years ago, that would cause her to do such a project. But she already had a bunch of people writing, and it was the last minute. She says, oh gosh, I should have asked you before, but could you come up with something in the next week? And not only did she want me to write it, but she wanted it fully mastered. Written, recorded, mastered, and sent.
That's a heck of a demand right there.
And I just thought, I've never done this before, and so I'm going to. And it was thrilling. I went right to my piano. I started writing a song. It had the title of the song needed to be "Walk a Mile." I think I ended up changing it later, but for the album that she put together.
She even ordered the title.
Yes, I mean we all had the same title.
Okay.
Everybody on the album had the same title, and it was just a question of how we responded to it. I may not be getting that totally accurate, but that was my memory of what we were told.
Okay.
And the titles were at least comparable to that. So anyway, it was thrilling. So why am I telling you all this? You were talking about writing songs for other people. Oh, so in that moment, for me, what was so compelling was the deadline. Like I got 7 days, and I can't play that well. So it's not just going to be me. I'm going to have somebody else play with me to make this more than just a crooked, Bar Scott tune, whatever. Because I'm not a trained player, and it takes me a long time to nail down what I'm going to play. And even then, I got to play exactly what I'm going to play. I don't improvise. I play what I'm going to play.
Yeah.
And I don't have a range on the chops level, on the playing level. So that's one of the reasons my albums get more fully produced, because I really do have to hire people or get my pals to play it so it sounds a little more polished or whatever. That brings us back to where we were before, where I've been saying for 35 years of writing and recording that I just need to have all these polished people to polish up my unpolished act. Well, wow. What I'm learning right now is, holy cow, when it's not polished, boy, does that put my heart on the line. Doesn't that put my courage out front, or my lack of courage? Like on the days when I see something and I say, man, I can't put that out. I just can't put that out.
Well,
and then I do. I say to myself, have courage, do it. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible.
And isn't that so fulfilling? And isn't that so fulfilling?
Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Love it. I just love it. And what I love even more than the fact that I'm doing it is that so many people are doing it, and it's one of the things that I hope doesn't go away when we're back to whatever normal is going to be. That there's still this spontaneous creation happening all over the planet. I love it.
Well, does it bring a new curiosity in you? This, yeah. Is it a curiosity that you want to try and fulfill with a new musical creation, then a new project?
Yes, okay. And that's starting to brew. And so I'll tell you what a sort of writing fantasy of mine is, in the sense that I've been thinking about it, kind of wondering if I could pull it off for, I don't know, I want to say decades. It's been so long. Is that since my voice is the thing that I feel like I got at birth, that's just what I got. The writing is the work that I have to do. I have to practice.
I see.
But my voice is just there. It's just there. Right.
Okay.
So, and yet I superimpose all of this other stuff. Like I could just as easily, and people have been wanting me to do this my whole career, couldn't you do an album of country songs, or couldn't you do an album of Motown songs, or couldn't you do an album of ballads or whatever? I was like, yeah, I could, because I can sing those things, sort of. Not that great. I mean, because it's not what I love. What I love are my songs. And so, I'm going to sing my songs and not the songs you want me to sing. And so the fantasy that I have is that I would write songs exclusively for my voice.
I see.
Which is to say, starting with my voice only. Like the way I write now, and every song I've ever written has been me sitting at the piano and I start noodling on something, and then I start humming along, excuse me, and then the song starts to build. So the instrument is what moves it forward. And because I'm not really a particularly good pianist or a particularly good guitarist, I play well enough. I play my songs well enough.
You do,
but
yes.
I don't have versatility. My songs tend to be me just sort of working out chords because I'm trying to get my fingers to move to places instead of having my voice move me to places.
Yeah, interesting.
So I don't know if I'm going to have time. I mean, I'm slowing down or whatever, but that's the thought that's happening for me now, and all this response to me just sort of posting these dorky, the way I would normally perceive as dorky little posts of me singing on my bike or whatever, is really giving me some confidence that I can maybe go down that road a little bit, even if I'm singing someone else's song.
Well, that's quite revealing. That's quite revealing that you can say that is giving you confidence, because a lot of people don't want to admit that they don't have confidence.
Oh, gosh,
a lot of artists rather, they want to appear as someone who is very, very certain, very, very steady, and very confident in their art. So for you
we should talk about that, because I agree with you. I think that's what we're trying to project. My experience is that everyone that I know that is creative is very insecure. But what I wanted to talk about is that there's kind of a paradox going on, because I don't know that I've ever said this publicly, and I hope it comes across correctly or politely, whatever, is that I feel absolute certainty about my talent. I have known it for a long, long time, and I'm not talking about my songs or my craft or anything, but my particular gift has been motivating me my entire adult life, if not longer.
Okay, yeah.
And what I'm talking about is my core sort of musicality, my singing, my melodic sense, whatever that, I've never thought about it before. But it does motivate me, or I wouldn't have kept going, right?
Sure,
So, but the confidence, it's undermined by this question of, but am I being honest with myself? I mean, that's one question. Or am I tricking myself? Yeah. But also, the whole fraudulent question. Yeah. But then also, am I as good as everyone else? Like, I know, am I good enough to stand out? Am I average, or am I better than average? And being average is a drag, but we're all kind of average. We can't all be exceptional. We'd all be average, right?
I'm sitting here nodding my head because that is a trap, and I call it a trap. That's a trap that I fell into. It's a self-made trap. There's a reason why it's just last May, I believe, was my first single release ever. First solo single ever. And that is because of that, I had the confidence. I know I can write. I know I can sing. I know I can play. I know this.
Yes.
And there's no arrogance in that. That's just that's just self-awareness.
Yes.
But yes, the uncertainty comes when I start to think, well, are people going to like this?
Right.
Or I start to
me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Are they going to like me?
So I have said publicly that the reason I haven't released anything up until now has been because of writing gigs that I've had for other bands. It's time to write a whole album for this artist or for that band. So I've used that up through the years from 2002 all the way up until last year. That's been my excuse to not put out now I've been writing and recording these songs. They're in the vault and ready to go, but I've never let them out because I've been so afraid of how I love the songs. I think they're great.
Yeah.
I think every song I write is the best song for me at that time.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Mine too.
But it was that response or lack of a response or lack of acceptance that scared me. How are others going to take this? And it just, I'm so glad that I have grown strong enough, and I think it's a matter of strength. I've grown strong enough to just toss that thought out the window.
Yes.
And an album, 2, maybe 3 albums worth of material would have been released in the last year since I've come to that realization that I can just forget about what other people think. And the only thing that's gotten away this time, yet again, is this whole thing with my operations and my the death of my son and whatnot. But at least I have grown past that concern or that fear of not being accepted by my musical peers or by potential fans.
Well,
it's a crippling thing. It's a trap.
It's crippling, and I have not entirely grown out of it, but I'm way farther down that path than I was. In other words, I would say that I've grown out of it, and then I put a record out, and then I find out I'm not. Or I write a book, and I find out I'm sensitive to response. But here's one thing that I constantly remind myself of. Is let's take, I always use Michael Jackson as an example, and I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say there's 7 billion people on the planet. How many albums did even Michael Jackson sell? Let's say 100 million.
Yeah.
It's a drop in the bucket.
It is.
It's a drop in the bucket. Okay, so that's one thought. But the other thought that really is more relevant to me on a smaller scale is that what I've learned over the course of my career is that most people, the general public, don't like what I do. They're indifferent. Yeah. They don't care.
Yeah.
They're listening to whatever, Lady Gaga, whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I spent way too much energy and time, both in the music business and just trying to get, in the right venues, whatever, trying to convince the people who didn't like my work to like it.
Yeah.
What a waste of time, because there are people that love my work.
Yeah.
So that brings you, to this sort of marketing question, I guess, if you have that kind of head, which I don't, which is who is your audience and how do you find them? And I don't know the answer that for myself. No. I don't know.
That's a whole other art form.
Yes.
That's a whole other art form.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's good to remember because, I told you, I put this new book out, and I'm slowly sort of throwing it out to the world and seeing what comes back. And
finding a way, correct?
I'm finding a way, yeah. And I'm and it's about finding a way to make music and to stay alive after the death of a child, which is what you and I, one of the things we have in common. I just feel like it's really important to remember that even the people that I love the most in the world don't necessarily love what I do. And I'm waiting for that. It's not that they dislike it. It's just not their thing.
I giggle because I have quite a few friends. They have kind of this, oh yeah, John, that sounds nice. And then you see they just kind of move on to whatever they
glaze over.
Yeah. It's like, okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And so that's when that question of acceptance comes up, because that's when I realize that I'm really actually hoping that the people that I love the most love my work as much as I do, and that's just not the case.
Yeah,
it's just been proven to be over and over again.
Yeah,
and I can't. So it's learning to not take that personally. Like, my work is really something separate from me. It really is something separate from me.
So you don't necessarily take on the identity of musician, singer, songwriter. That's just something you do. That's not who you are. Or
so tell me how you made that connection, because I think I need a therapist in that moment.
Well, I guess I can look at myself, and I can think of other. Well, look at somebody like Neil Young. When you think of Neil Young, what do you think? Oh yeah, he's this brooding, very deep thinking. Yeah, those are the kind of words that come up when you think of Neil Young. So that is who he is. But where do you get those thoughts of Neil Young? You get that from his music.
From his music. But is he that?
Exactly.
I don't know him.
Exactly. I guess that's a question that we won't know, because neither one of us know Neil Young.
Well, personally.
But so I guess the question is are you your music, or is music just something you do?
In my case, it is very much just something I do.
I see.
And I think that's it's a new kind of realization for me. And I think it can change, it can evolve over a lifetime. Because I think if you'd asked me that 15 years ago, I might have been less clear about that. I might have said, oh yeah, I'm a musician.
Yeah.
And then I went mute for 10 years. I moved from New York to Colorado. Fairly traumatic sort of reasons for, not that traumatic, but an end of a marriage, a son who died, whatever. I moved to Colorado to start a new life, and I don't sing for 10 years, almost literally, like not even in my house.
Yeah, I was going to say not even at home, not
around. That's what's so sort of revolutionary internally for me, to be singing on these during this epidemic. It's like, wow, this is incredible. I'm singing again. Yeah. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
But so now I had to ask myself the question: if I'm a musician and I'm not making music, who am I?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I'm way more than that. And I'm also not a person who creates exclusively music. I love to write. I write memoir. I write stories. I write poetry. I write lyrics. I write music. I sing. I make collage. I take photographs, whatever. I do whatever I feel like doing. Yeah. And I do them all for a living. Yeah. They all into this small little pot that I call my living.
So it is literally just something you do. It's not who you are, it's something you do.
For me it is.
But when you write a beautiful song like Love Is the Reason, for example, and you put that kind of lyric down on paper, isn't that lyrical expression a part of you?
Absolutely. There's no question. And I would also say that when I cut a piece of paper and glue it down on a piece of cardboard, that is an aspect of myself. I would say that my songwriting is probably the most intimate. It's the most personal. Like, one of my struggles, this is sort of taking it off your question, but one of my struggles has been that for me, the trading of my music, the selling of it, the commercializing of it is heart-wrenching. I just can't do it. It's been a real fight. I mean, I've done it, and I've been reasonably successful as an independent person. I've done okay. But it's interesting to me that my book writing or my prose writing, I have no problem trying to sell.
Okay. Why is that?
My music, well, because it's holy. That's where I'm coming from. In other words,
I see.
Music in general for me is a holy place. So that's the answer to if somebody says to me, "Could you do a country album?" My only answer is no, because I don't resonate with that music. I could sing it if you paid me, I guess, but I don't really want to get paid to do that, because then it's no longer in the realm of the holy. And when I say holy, I mean, you know what I mean. I'm not talking about.
No, I know. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And when you talk about, for example, when people ask you, why don't you sing make a country album? I wrote a country album for a Norwegian artist. And that was the first time in my writing career that I actually had to stop. And this is a guy who is one of my best friends. I love the guy like a brother. He's quite a bit older than me, like an uncle. Let me say that, like an uncle. Yes. I love this guy. But I had to stop and take a step back and go through a little process and think about, okay, what is this songwriting thing that I'm doing? Because I'm very much writing from a place of, this is me. When I write, this is who I am. It's not just something I do. This is me. I'm putting myself on the paper,
right,
to be sung by to be sung by someone. They're singing my feelings, my thoughts, my observations. So I personalize it very much so, and I think that's a little bit to my detriment. That's a whole nother podcast episode, though. But I had to stop and think, okay, because I don't identify with country music at all. I never have. It's not that I didn't like it. It's just that I don't identify myself as it. So that was a big challenge for me, and I ended up writing the album, and I think it's some of the best songwriting I did, because I created another character. I'm not schizophrenic. Yes. I was myself, but I created, I'm going to be this songwriter. This is this aspect of myself that I didn't even know was there. But now I found that aspect of myself. I'm going to create a character around that, and I'm going to write this album. And I did.
See, I think that's great. I just think that's sort of another fantasy, that I would be able to write from a character's point of view. I write exclusively in all genres. It's all about me, once people say, well, what are your songs? What do you write? And I say, well, it's the world according to me.
Yeah.
And people, get back to that point. Well, people think that's selfish, and I think, well, no. My argument for that is this is art.
Yeah,
this is what art is.
And people will label
you write
that.
A song.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, when you write a song for someone else, it's still you.
Absolutely, very much so. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
I interrupted you.
No, terrible host.
Sorry.
No, but that was a fun little escapade. Writing that album, that was a moment of growth. That was a period of growth for me. I never in my life imagined that I would be writing a country album, but I did it.
So let me ask you something. Would you be able to sing like a chorus or a verse for me?
Right now?
Yeah. Go on.
Oh gosh!
Put you on the spot.
Let's let the podcast keep rolling. Maybe I'll come back and sing something. Maybe I will.
Yeah, because you have such a great voice.
Oh, thank you. I've been singing my whole life, and being a musician is something actually growing up in suburban/rural Ohio. All of the kids around me were listening to, the music of the times, things like, the classic, what we call classic rock today. A lot of Boston, Queen, Van Halen, things like that. Mm-hmm. So that was my introduction to that music. We moved to that place from the city. We moved to that place when I was 7 years old. And all of a sudden I'm hearing this different kind of music because my mother was very much into the gospel, R&B, soul music. And then I'm hearing all of this rock stuff from the kids that I was going to school with. So that's kind of the roots of my musical taste. Mm-hmm. It's based in all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But the only thing is that I don't have a voice to sing that classic rock type of stuff. So there's
Yes.
elements of that in my music, but it's different because it has to suit my voice.
So I'm very curious about that. I have the same issue where I have my voice is not conducive to full out, kind of rock and roll or full out soul R&B stuff. That's what I grew up on. Philly sound, all that.
Yeah.
Great.
So much
music.
good music from Philly.
Just
oh my
such
gosh.
great music. That's where
Teddy Pendergrass. How's that for a voice,
Yeah. I mean, what the heck? I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I listen to. Marvin Gaye, I love him, Stevie Wonder, all that stuff. And that's what I listen to primarily. That's what floats my boat. And then I come along and I've got this sort of pretty, sort of pure sort of voice. And I wrote this really, really terrible song in 1986, let's say. When I did my first album, and it was not an album, it was 12 songs, but it was on a cassette. That's what was available at the time. This is before CDs were even dreamt of. And this song is called Pretty Voices, and it's really one of the worst songs that's ever been written. But the reason it was so important to me was because it was my attempt at using my pretty voice
to
sing about, how frustrating it is when something big like what's happening now. What's happening now? If it almost requires, screaming.
Yeah.
To be heard, to pay attention, to get the world to pay attention, all that stuff. And I don't have that kind of a voice. So what do you do? What do you do?
Well, what you do is what you do, because you have this soft, melodic, I could hear your voice, and I hope you take this the way I want you to take it. I could hear your voice easily singing like those old late 70s, early 80s yacht rock type of songs, because you have that musicality and that softness in your voice. But at the same time, I hear a few things fell into place when you said that you lived in Philly, because I hear so much soul. I hear so much black soul in your voice when you sing. You put a little trill on the end of some of your phrasings that is so much soul. So you do what
to hear.
Yeah. So that would be my non-professional critique of your voice, is that you have a softness that belongs in a certain genre, but then you also have that soul element that changes that genre that you actually sing in, and it makes it into your own thing. And I think to a certain degree, that's what I do with my voice, because I do have that classic rock pop thing in me, but I can't sing that. But I do sing that in a way in my music.
Yeah.
So
well, and I'm the same way. I mean, people, in the sense of I love pop music. That's what I love. I don't listen to singer-songwriters. It's just not my thing. It's what I do, but it's not my thing.
No.
And that's really sort of embarrassing to confess. But
it keeps you pure. It keeps you pure. You're not copying anybody.
Well, I'm sure I did unconsciously, and still do. I hope I do.
Well, we all have our influences. We all have our influences. Yeah.
But just trying to find your voice. I when I lived in New York and a little bit in Colorado, I coached singers a lot. Sort of as a teacher, but I like to call myself a coach because I really didn't know what I was doing. Except I was a good coach. I could get people they were comfortable with me, so I could get them to sing or whatever. And always, people would come in and they had these beautiful voices and they would sing, and I just like, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you don't need to learn anything about singing. What you need to learn about is yourself. In other words, it's the next step, which takes you to, I'm going on a tangent here, but a friend of mine took me to a YouTube video of Ella Fitzgerald singing with Joe Pass the song Lush Life, which I had never heard before, and she just thought I would get it. So she wanted me to hear it. So it was great. listen to Ellie and say, oh man, it's incredible, it's great, it's great. But because it was YouTube, it kept going to the next
I see.
YouTube of somebody doing Lush Life.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Queen Latifah comes on singing Lush Life.
I've seen that.
I cannot take my eyes off of her.
I've seen that performance.
Oh my goodness!
I've seen that performance. That was a shock. I knew she was somewhat musical, but I didn't know she could do that.
Yes, and you know, it was so. And everybody who's hearing us talk about Queen Latifah, go look at this video of her singing "Lush Life." First
Lush
of all, she's
Life.
beautiful.
Yeah,
you can watch her for hours and hours.
Yeah.
But what's so compelling for me is not only her voice and her musicality, and the song is weird and great, but also that she is so herself. Like her little idiosyncratic smiles, the little smirky thing she does.
It is a performance. She's not just singing; she's performing that song.
But she's herself.
But she's herself.
I mean,
she's
there's
herself.
no question.
Yeah.
She's not trying to pass off as some great standard jazz singer. She's just being Queen Latifah in the rockin' dress.
I get moved. I get really genuinely moved by performances like that. That's the kind of stuff that'll give me chills and tears will start running. That's music. That's performance right there. Yeah.
Yes. And so one of the things that happens to me in a situation like that is I look at that and I say to myself, okay, now what is it that's making this so great? And there's lots of obvious reasons that it's so great. But one of the ones that the public might not understand is that because Queen Latifah is so good, all the people around her that are working on that video, that performance, are also excellent. So the arrangement is great, the groove is great, the mix is great, the mastering is great, the lighting is great.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of people saying we're rocking the house on this one because the singer can really nail this.
That is a beautiful juxtaposition of a lot of different aspects of the performance. It's not just the singer; it's the people around her and behind her as well. Yeah,
right. And you earn that. You earn those moments, and she's just worked really hard. She's extremely talented. I'm so glad you mentioned her because she's one of my heroes, but I've kind of forgotten about her. Yes,
but she just
keeps coming out.
Yeah.
She just keeps doing stuff. And it's like, wow, that's great. She plays Gwen Ifill on a Saturday Night Live. Bit. You know what I wanted to ask you?
Yes. Because I think your lyrics are very deep. You write about, it's just deep. I feel something when I listen to your lyrics. Have you ever written something and then people come to you afterwards and they're surprised? Or that they maybe are... I guess I'm thinking...
Surprised in the sense...
Well, in the sense that maybe you've exposed something about yourself that they didn't know about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sure. My mom.
Okay.
It's true, but she knows.
Because this kind of ties in with my earlier question, or I think I laid it out there as a statement about your music being you. You put some thought and you put a little bit of soul into your lyrics, and then people read that, and that's going to some greater or lesser degree form their opinion of you or their picture of who you are. Yes.
And I would say that, for those of you who are listening that are not songwriters, there are many ways to write a song. And so I think the best way to answer your question is to tell you how I do.
Yeah.
Because then that might answer the question a little bit or shed some light on it. But basically what happens with me is the lyrics are absolutely last. I cannot seem to write a decent lyric until I have an entire musical environment to write in.
Okay. Yeah.
So that could be all the way out to this record is done and Barr still has not written the lyrics. I might have enough to hum along or some sort of scrambled egg lyric. You've heard that story about yesterday, scrambled eggs. So they may be lyrics sort of like that. But so when I'm finally in a place where I'm writing the lyrics, they're pretty much 24/7 in my mind and my heart. I can't sleep, or if I'm sleeping, they're happening. And what happens for me generally is that there's a movie that starts happening. It's a motion picture that's going on in my head.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily make sense. It's more like a dream motion picture.
Yeah.
It might jump all over the place, but it's happening. And I feel like my desire, my hope for my lyrics is that the film will continue to run without interruption, without a break, as the lyrics unfold.
Okay. Yeah.
So as soon as there's a jig in the lyric that doesn't work, some word doesn't either sound right, sonorously that way, literally doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Or if it doesn't mean exactly what I'm trying to say, or I feel like I'm trying to say, I stay on that word until I find the word that
Okay.
feels correct
You
for
won't
me.
you won't just move on and finish structuring the
Not
lyric
at
and
all.
come back. No. Okay.
Never. Oh, I'll move on within that song, but I won't put that song out
Until it's
no one else is going to hear that song
until you're satisfied and
I feel really comfortable with what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
And that may not be. I would say my lyrics are not necessarily understandable at first. You don't read them and get a storyline. There isn't a storyline. I don't write stories.
No.
It's one of the reasons the singer-songwriter world doesn't work for me, because I'm not interested in song stories myself. And I don't write them myself.
No.
So these are more, if I were going to say it, they're more like art songs, or they're more like poetry set to music, except that's not really accurate, because poetry is a whole different thing in my book.
Well, your lyrics, to me anyway, are more of an image than they are of a story. Not even close to a story. It's an image. It's a feeling.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's right, and that's good. I'm going to write that down.
There you go.
Because I think that's right.
Take that one.
Yeah, take that one and put it on the back of your record. Because that makes me feel good, because that's actually what I'm. I'm grateful for you to say that, because that's sort of what I'm hoping for.
Well, that's definitely the feeling I get.
How conscientious are you? How conscious of you are what you're doing when you write a song?
What do you mean?
I mean, are you conscious, or like, in other words, I work so much on the level of feeling my way through this, because I don't know what chords I'm playing. I guess I can figure them out, but I don't know. And I'm not fashioning myself after a certain style or anything.
No.
I'm winging it constantly.
Yeah.
So everything about it is a feel thing. So that's why I'm asking that.
That's pretty much the way I'm doing it. I'm very much winging it. I am not a trained musician, far from it. And I, at times, struggle to get the instrumentation, because I do everything myself.
Yeah.
When I perform, of course, with a band. But the writing process, the recording process, I do alone. I have a friend of mine from time to time who will come in and throw down a guitar solo, but even most of the guitar solos is me. So I do all that stuff myself, and it is a struggle. I enjoy the struggle, but it is a struggle to get the instrumentation, to get the musical part the way I hear it in my head. And I may have to, I've had parts. Now you've only heard the acoustic songs that I've done since my last shoulder surgery. But what I actually wanted to put out is full instrumentation, bass, guitar, drums, keyboard, and everything. And on some of those parts and some of those songs, I'll admit it, I have had to work and just go over and over a certain part just to get it right. And like, okay, now let's record. Now I've got it. But that can be after an hour or sometimes days of practicing. But
too.
But that just means I've grown, because once I've done it, I've done it. So I've grown as a musician that way.
Yes.
So it can be a cerebral process to actually get it out there. But it is a very internal, almost spiritual process. I feel the music, and sometimes it's such a surreal experience. It feels like it just falls into my head from nowhere, a musical idea. So that's the music side of things. The lyrical side of things for me is sometimes it's a process of observation and then trying to document, so to speak, what I have observed, and that's fun. It can be a conversation that I have with someone, and something they say stimulates a thought or an idea. It does something to me. It means something to me then and there. So I have to hold on to that and try and get it out on paper when that conversation is over. And that's like my documentation of that feeling that I had at that moment.
So do you write the lyrics first then?
Very often, most often.
Really? See, I'm the complete opposite.
Yeah. But what I find very often is that when I start writing the lyrics, I may not have any kind of a musical idea to begin with, but as I start writing, boom, that musical idea falls into my head. And then I have to put the lyrics aside and then very quickly get in front of a microphone and record a melody line or some sort of phrasing, musical phrasing, record that with just my voice, just so I get it down so I don't forget it. And then I go immediately back to the lyrics and get that out while the feeling is there. That's most often the way I write. Most often. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Because I go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but then there's another side to my writing, to my lyrics. I have found that for me, it has been a very therapeutic thing. Previous experiences, traumatic things, or a moment of heartbreak at some point, that I get this feeling like, okay, I need to get this out. I'm tired of carrying that with me. I need to get it out. And then I'll sit down and I'll write about that. And it may be so abstract that nobody even in the world, even the people who may have been involved in that traumatic experience or that moment of heartbreak or loss or whatever, they may not even understand that particular lyric is about that incident. But I know what it is, and there's something free. I'm free of something when I do that.
Yes.
It might sound kind of cliche-like and whatnot, but that works for me to write like that.
No, I agree, and I have similar. I'm thinking of one song in particular that has very much that aspect to it, and it took me. I started writing it when the event that was difficult happened when I was around 22, and I finished. I released it. Let's see, what would that be? I released it 20 years later, finished it, because I couldn't, I gotta have some more. I couldn't write it until I got some perspective on the thing. In other words, for me in that particular case, it's a song called Hold Your Head Up.
Okay. I don't think I've heard that one.
Yeah, it's one of the few that I did. It's one of the few that I did that I played everything on. And I really like it.
Well, I definitely have to listen to it now. Now I definitely have to go back and find it.
I did that one myself. And I record my albums myself. I do all my vocals and piano and stuff in my studio, but all the overdubbing and mixing and stuff I do elsewhere. But in that case, if I had written that song at the time when the hurt was, and I wrote the first line then, if I had finished it then, the song would have been an angry song. It would have been a hurting song. By the time I was ready to finish it, and other things had happened that were comparable, that would, sort of fill out the lyric.
Yeah.
Other things that I could use to make the song make sense. By then, I was saying, wow, I lived through that. And the people that caused the pain and who I caused pain to, we all lived through it. We're better for it. We're fuller human beings for having done what we did to one another. And now I want to finish this song with the line, hold your head up. Now, I didn't think of that. Now, like, in other words, in the sense of, I'm whole now. Yeah. I'm whole. Here I am. I'm whole. I've seen all sides of myself, And so I'm happier with that outcome than I would have been with the outcome that says, you stink.
Right. So you feel you can feel from time to time that therapeutic effect that comes with songwriting.
Oh, no question.
Yeah,
no question. And if nothing else, I mean, you there's two answers. One is that, or two things that might happen. One is that it's literally therapeutic, like you write it because I write it because I feel crappy. Like in that situation, something had happened, it wasn't comfortable, I needed to write about it, I was hurt, I was angry. And I started writing a lyric. And the lyric was, I have tried to see what is happening in my life. That was the lyric. That's all. It couldn't go any further. I've tried to see, but I don't get it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So there's that. So it was just the therapy in that moment of pain and sitting at the piano and singing something. So there was that therapy.
Yeah.
And then there's also the therapy of crafting the song and asking myself, what am I trying to say here? What happened? How can I sort of improve myself? What was my part of the problem? What did I do that exacerbated the
self-analysis?
Self-analysis. So there's that therapeutic level, and then there's yet a third level, which is somebody else hears the song and they write me, and they say, "Boy, did that help me today."
Isn't that a good feeling? Isn't that a good feeling of being able to share like that? Yeah.
Yep. And it happens. You get some message from somebody 10 years later, and they say, "Man, that song really did whatever."
Yeah.
And you think, "Yep, good. I'm so grateful because that's why I do what I do."
Well, I truly enjoy the entire songwriting process, and it's I don't know, it's gotten me through some rough times.
Yeah.
I remember when I came to Norway. We came here in 2002. And so this would have been in the summer of 2003 that I got my first songwriting gig over here in Norway. Had to write an album for a blues rock band. They're kind of going for that. They kind of were going for that classic Doobie Brothers sound. Cool band, lots of talent. And I just jumped into that whole therapeutic aspect. And that album, I don't think I've ever said this publicly before. That entire album turned into a cleansing process so that I could cleanse myself from my divorce. I've been married. This is my second marriage. And I had been divorced. It was ugly and nasty. And I put it all in that album without naming names, but I put all of that frustration, the heartbreak that went both ways, and I put it all into that album. And as soon as it was done, for each song that was written, there was another level of freedom, another level of being cleansed, and that therapeutic effect. I've never felt it like I did for that first album here.
Yes, and I've had that same experience where you put a bunch of songs together and you realize that you've just done it so that you can live through something. In the case of my album Parachute, which I think is the one you know,
that's the one I know the best. Here I am. I'm mixing Norwegian and English. Forgive me.
Oh, that's okay. I don't speak Norwegian though.
Did you catch that though? That I said something wrong?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
What did you say?
I said for det meste, which means for the most part. For the most part.
For det meste.
But I said for det meste.
Sounds almost like French. Is it you roll the R's?
You can in certain words, yeah. You can roll the R's, yeah. Okay. So when I get a little unfocused or in a hurry, I have a tendency to blend the languages, and some people catch me, some people don't. So,
well, I like the idea that you're actually relaxed enough that you can go back and forth. That's a much better way of looking at it.
Well, I'm real relaxed. This is a good conversation. Good. I tell you, if I lived down the street from you, you would be invited over on a daily basis, you and your husband, to have a cup of coffee and just chill out and talk. This is fun.
Yeah, except you'd have to serve me tea.
Oh, you drink tea? Well, there you go. But you know what? I did. Yeah, but you know what? I did not drink coffee until I came here to Norway. They drink coffee over here like it's water. Well, not in this region, but up north where we have our other home, where the Sami people are. They drink coffee like water up there. So I kind of fell into that habit. I'm actually trying to cut down on my coffee intake.
But how do you sleep? Do you sleep?
Well, I do cut off my coffee drink by 3 or so in the afternoon, and that helps. But for a while, I could drink a cup, at 6 in the evening, and then lay there like a dummy, wondering why I can't sleep. So, but 3 o'clock for the most part, for the mesta, 3 o'clock for the most part is the cutoff point for me. I don't think coffee is not a good thing. I should just stop. Doing
Oh,
it.
I don't know. There's some science that says that it is a good thing. My husband's convinced that it's a good thing.
He's
He
a good
said
man.
it this
He's a good
morning. He
man.
says, "You got to drink my coffee. You got to get going here." So
Does he have any Norwegian blood? Maybe that's why.
he does not. He is
No.
he is German on both sides.
Yeah.
He's German. Yeah. So I just drink tea because first of all, I love tea. But second of all, I was a junkie on Diet Coke when I was in college.
Oh no, that's just.
And I just was completely a junkie. And so I was a junkie on caffeine. And so I just, when I finally got off it, I got off caffeine altogether. So I don't do any caffeine. Yeah. When I do, I feel it.
I drink tea. I drink tea when I'm singing. If I'm in the studio or even on stage, I gotta have some tea. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good for the
So
throat.
here's sort of a gross question.
Yeah.
But what the heck? When you sing,
Yeah.
do you salivate when you sing?
Yes.
And do you have that problem with not live, because who cares, but when you're recording, do you have that issue? I'm wondering if you do, what you do about it.
I like to, when I'm going to sing in the studio, I like to be fasted. I like to have not eaten. If it's a planned session, I have a home studio, so things can happen whenever. But if I have a planned session where I know I'm going to sing, I like to not eat anything for 24 hours ahead of time, and then minimal with water ingestion. So that I'm a little bit drier, and I have like a smoky aspect to my voice anyway. And when I'm drier, that smokiness comes out even more into the microphone when I'm going to sing. So
That's interesting.
yeah, so that a few swallows of lemon tea with a touch of honey will be enough for hydration, and it coats my throat and gives me that relaxing, smoky thing with a dry throat, other than the small amount of tea that I take in during the session. That's my little routine. That's my little routine there.
So for your listeners that don't understand why I asked you that question, when you record vocals in front of a good microphone,
Yeah.
which we all have, it picks up everything, and
Yes.
that can include the bubbles in your mouth,
Tiny little
smacking of your
crackles,
tongue,
everything.
crackles. And they have great software for removing that stuff now,
Yeah.
but it's very irritating to hear it while you're performing. So
And I try not to use a lot of those software plugins. I want my sound to be as organic as possible, especially on these acoustic songs that I've put out, and on the other acoustic songs that are coming. I want them to be as organic and real as possible. So I stay away from those plugins, but it's also because I don't have so much knowledge about those things. Even though I do all my own recording and engineering and everything, I really don't have that much knowledge about the equipment side of things, the plug-in side of things. So I'm going for that organic sound, and then it's even more important that I get that vocal correct. So little things like coming in fasted for at least 24 hours, relatively dried out, not dehydrated, but dry. That is a very decided routine that I have. Yeah.
That's good. Well, I just recorded this, my book. I did the audio version of it here while we were in lockdown.
Finding a way, folks. Finding a way.
Finding a way, yes. And the audio version, you could hear all that mouth noise even more clearly because there's no music to hide it behind. But so I don't use those plugins when I'm recording myself, but my engineer who masters, who mixes for me and masters stuff, he does. He's a junkie head, so he does all that stuff. And I'm kind of amazed that they can fix the stuff. But like I'm saying, it's irritating when you're recording.
It can be a big distraction. It can be a huge distraction. Yeah.
And it never occurred to me to dehydrate myself first, because the inclination is to hydrate. And I think you're right. I'm going to try it.
I think it works well for me. And then also that fasting process, it does something to me physically and mentally. I just feel quicker. I'm more alert, not hyper, but just more, I feel more centered. I feel more steady. I feel stronger and ready to keep my focus for the session.
Mm-hmm. Do you get dizzy or anything if you're fasting?
I have fasted for my record for a dry fast. Now we're talking dry fast now. No liquid intake either. Is 86 hours.
Wow.
86 hours, and I was active with my powerlifting training. I still kept training when I was supposed to during those 86 hours. Wow, that can be a whole nother podcast. There's so many physiological things that happen that kick in when you're fasted. The quickest way to sum it up is if you think about mankind and womankind 10,000 years ago, food was a rare thing. You didn't eat every day,
Right.
You could go days with no food. But those people back in those days, 10,000 years ago, they didn't die. They thrived. They were still able to have, I can just imagine what kind of athletes they were back then, to have to be on foot running after their food.
Right.
So they were still able to do that even though they were fasted over several days,
Right.
up to a week maybe.
Right.
Now, of course, they had access to water, and that makes a big difference. But the point is that you can go for days without food, and you can still function optimally.
Mm-hmm.
The body's testosterone level shoots up like 50% after 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
All of your neurological synapses are more effective when you're fasted after 48 hours. So there's this whole thing. The body says, "Okay, I'm ready to be, I'm ready to be a caveman again. I have to function." And then something happens at a higher level physically and mentally. As I said, I'm clearer in my thought when I'm fasted as well. So it's just an interesting thing. I kind of fell into that. Too much time on YouTube, and I saw some people who were experts in that field. I'm like, hey, let me try this, and I did it. So not so much now, but for the most part, I live, you could call it a fasting focused lifestyle, to where for the most part, I'm fasted for 21, 22 hours, and then I'll have a 2.5 hour eating window. And it just works.
Wow.
It works for me. And then every once in a while, I'll throw in a 48-hour fast or a 72-hour fast. That 86-hour thing I did, that was just experimenting, just to see. Because prior to that, I had done an 84-hour fast, and then I wanted to beat that, and it ended up to be 86 hours. And everything went great. I felt fantastic. I don't recommend it for people unless you really know what you're doing, but for me, it works. It's a way of life.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah,
it's
a way
very
of life.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did we get on fast? From music?
Well, no. Yeah, I asked you about how you sing in front of a microphone. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
That's how we got into it. Terrible host. What's wrong with this host here?
It's good. It's very good.
Can I tell the story real quick about how we met? how I found you?
Yes.
You and I have talked about it, but I want to say this for the benefit of the listeners, because this is, to me, it's pretty amazing. When I released my first single, Edge of It All, last year, I was very new to this whole thing with all this stuff with Spotify and iTunes. It was all witchcraft to me. I didn't understand it. So I was doing my research, trying to figure it out and all this stuff. So I go on, I put my profile out there on Spotify, went to bed, woke up the next day, and I do a search on Spotify to look at my profile to see how everything is. And my artist name is John Allen. I don't use my last name as an artist, so I just use John Allen. So I type in my name, John Allen, and obviously, because I am, the technological dummy that I am, I had done something wrong, so my profile was not up on Spotify. But what came up was the song by you, Bar Scott, the song John Allen. I'm like, what? I pushed play on that thing, and I was just floored. And of course, I wasn't so arrogant as to think that the song was written for me, but just the fact that it had my name and I was in this real heightened state because the first time releasing a solo single and all that stuff. And then I find that song, and I'm like, wow. And I think it was that same evening that I wrote to you on Facebook and said, hey, I found this song. It's beautiful, and so on and so forth. And that was the beginning of our long distance friendship.
Yes.
That's how I found you.
So this is, it's amazing. So I'll need to tell your listeners who John Allen is. But before I go there, I just want to say for anybody who's listening, who's a songwriter or in the arts, what to me is a miracle is that I've written, I don't know, I've put out 65 or 70 songs on various albums. And even the songs like John Allen, which is not the one that you would send to the radio station. It's a kind of a B-side song or even a C-side song, just because it's not a pop song.
Right.
Every single one of my songs has been picked by at least one person as their favorite Bar Scott song. And I'm saying that just to assure people that you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, look what happened by me writing this John Allen song.
Yeah.
We're friends, and we're sitting here talking around the world, halfway around the world. And I didn't plan that. I was writing a song for my husband, so the story behind John Allen is that my husband's brother was named John Allen, and John Allen committed suicide a little over 50 years ago. And I don't have the advantage of having ever met him. But he has had a huge impact on my life because my husband and he were attached at the hip.
Yeah.
And so, it affected Brent's psychology, his heart, whenever there's a suicide or a death, or, I see this big lug of a husband of mine suddenly crying, weeping, or whatever. And I want to know who John Allen is. So the song is really me asking Brent to speak to me as much as he can possibly speak to me about John so that I can know him better. Yeah. And now here we are, you and I are talking. And
it's such a beautiful song.
It's the same thing, but isn't it the same thing? I mean, I'm getting to know John Allen, his brother, but I'm also getting to know you, and we're all part of this big human. It's
kind of a beautiful, spooky type of thing.
Yes.
It's just the way that fell into place. I mean, that's what music can do. I don't want to keep throwing out these cliches, but that is what music can do. It can do things like this.
Yes. So. And so what's exciting for me, and again, I'm sort of hoping some of your listeners are songwriters, is, to say to you, keep writing, keep putting your songs out. And you don't have to put it out in the public in a big, circus kind of way.
You can quietly just put it out there just quietly put it out there and then see who finds it.
Whatever it is. Sing on your front porch. No, this is what we're learning right now. Yeah. Sing on your front porch. I mean, this is incredible. We live basically on campus of Oregon State University. It's across the street. Okay. It's right next door. So we're right there. And there is a walkway called Campus Way. It's a pedestrian walkway that goes, from one side of campus to the other. And in the middle of it, there's this quite large archway. And of course, under the archway, the acoustics are fantastic. So I know that because I tend to see spaces like that and start singing in them.
Yes.
But as soon as the pandemic started, other people started singing in there. And now people rehearse in there.
Oh, really?
So you walk by and there are these incredible musicians just playing music. They're not performing, they're practicing. They're talking to each other, they're practicing, but they're outside and the rest of us are hearing it.
How cool is that? How cool is that?
So I'm saying to you and me and your listeners and anybody who hears this is play your music, play it outside, open the windows, open the doors, whatever. Let us hear it because, wow. I mean, my friend Charlene called me the other day from Colorado. We lived in this tiny little town of 600 people. And my piano was in the second floor of the space that we could open the windows up. And I used to do scales. I mean, I was trying to learn how to play the piano finally at age, 55. I'm doing these scales and for hours just to see if I could catch up to my contemporaries that have been playing since they were 2, And she called me this week and we were just talking about her dogs dying and we were, getting to talking about the world and everything that's going on. And then also at the end of the call, she says, you know what I miss the most? I miss you not playing your piano. And I walk by and I can't hear you playing the piano. And I was mostly playing scales.
Yeah.
It was maybe better than that sometimes, but a lot of it was just me drilling myself.
Just working it out.
And you just don't realize. She said it reminded my mom and my sister used to play scales. And you don't know until somebody says, could you close the window? Like if it's bothering somebody, you close the windows or whatever. But quite often, it's really lifting somebody's spirits.
We had a neighbor at the place we lived at before, actually just right around the corner from where we are now. We're in the same neighborhood, but we just bought a different house. And the neighbor over there, he plays the violin in the Norwegian, the National Orchestra. What do you call that in English? Yeah, the
Philharmonic.
Yeah, thank you. The Philharmonic. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I used to love either coming or going, and I would be able to hear him in there practice. And all he was doing was running scales on his violin. That's all he was doing. Every once in a while, I would hear him actually playing a song. But for the most part, it was running scales and just warming up and just, getting his chops. But what a beautiful thing to hear. And I miss that. That was part of living in that place, was hearing him practicing on his violin.
Yes.
So I get it that had that effect on her. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you, Bar, do you feel better now? I feel better.
I do. So let's go back. Let's see. We've been on for a little over an hour and a half, and we can go back to where we were right before we started this podcast. You were in a frantic, exciting place of the national media trying to get your attention, and that's wonderful. And I didn't sleep well last night. Because of some noises in the street that woke me up, and then I couldn't get my mind to stop. And the world is complicating my sleep right now.
Yeah.
And this is the value of communication, because I'm quiet again and grateful to you.
Try it. Well, thank you, and I'm grateful to you. Try and hold on to that peace and hold on through it throughout the day. It's nighttime here, so I got a feeling I'm going to sleep quite well tonight. I'll hug Snoopy and the babies and then get some shut eye myself. But
good. I forgot about the time zone. You're
it's
you're
8 p.m.
Night, aren't you?
Two minutes after 8. Yeah, 8 p.m.
Yes.
But tonight I have to go to bed early. I have there's a TV crew coming in the morning, so I have to.
You are so cool.
No.
I value you. You're so cool.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations. And let me just say this. I mean, it's tricky because, of course, it's exciting. You're having a platform. You're having your voice is being heard, and you're articulate and wonderful, and we need to hear you. And at the same time, here we are in this so difficult a situation, and I just want to sort of draw that tension. And identify it, because that's what artists are dealing with all the time. This situation you're in is a more difficult one, but as artists, we're constantly in that tension of, oh my gosh, I'm so excited because somebody likes what I'm doing and somebody wants to hear whatever they want.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're doing something very serious. You're doing something that's extremely important, and it's not about celebrity. It's about the issue.
It's about responsibility. It's about responsibility,
right.
And it weighs heavy. It does. And then one goes, well, I shouldn't say one. I should say I am going through this thing in my mind of, okay, am I worthy Or maybe that's not even
Yes.
anything to think about. Maybe I just need to focus on how am I going to continue to use the platform. Okay, now there are literally cameras that are going to be in my face, and I have to speak. I
Yes.
have to speak to the audience now, and I have to speak responsibly, and I have to speak effectively, and that's a burden. But I do think that this last hour and a half with you it's kind of just cleared my mind of any doubt, and I'm going to take that with me when I go to bed. I'll wake up a little bit earlier tomorrow so I can have maybe an extra hour and a half in the morning alone, and start that process up again, and feel the pressure,
Yes.
feel the stress, but turn it into something positive that I can act on when those cameras go on.
Yes,
That's what I'm going to try and do. That's what I'm
as
going
a
to try
fan
and do.
of yours, I would say, you're so wonderful, and
Oh,
so
my
this and just that whole. I mean, it sounds trite to say trust yourself, but that's basically what I'm saying. But also know that you've done this work, and I'm not talking about the work of being on television. I'm talking about the work of self-analysis and exploration into your thoughts and feelings. You've been doing this work for a very long time, and we need to hear you, and you are worthy, and it's really important. It's just really, really important, and it's not so important that you need to sweat over it. You just have to go. I mean, it's so much easier to say than do, to just go be yourself. But that's basically it. That's basically it.
Well, that is definitely some good words of encouragement. That's incredibly sweet what you just said to me, and that lifts me up. That encourages me. I think I'm going to walk into this a little bit more secure tomorrow. Now that you've said something like that, that is some good advice. Coach Barscott, everybody.
Well, I don't want to end it on that note in the sense of coaching in this, because I feel like this is the fundamental human.
You're right.
Challenge.
Yeah, you're
this
right.
is the challenge we all have.
Yeah, you're right.
Every single day, and so you're going into it with lights on you tomorrow and Tuesday. But it's the work of every single day. Walking through life. So, I guess what I'm really saying is just I love you, and I trust you to do, to move into the light as yourself. And
well, thank you for that, and much love right back at you. And
thank you,
I truly believe that our friendship was meant to be. There's a reason why I stumbled upon your song John Allen while I was looking for myself, and I fall into your song John Allen. So this was supposed to happen. One of these days when I get back home, and if I ever take a trip, all of my people are on the eastern side of the country, but if I ever get to the West Coast, I'm coming to Oregon.
Well, please do.
I was a truck driver for about 18 months after I got out of the Marines, and just about every state in the lower 48 I went through except for Oregon. I didn't see Oregon, and I didn't see Arizona. Other than that,
you're welcome here. But if you're on the East Coast, my people are all on the East Coast. I'm the only. Well, I have a sister and a brother in California, but my parents and my sort of clan is on the East Coast. So if you're ever out there, and hopefully we're going to cross paths. Yeah,
absolutely. And we're trying to restructure our summer, because we were supposed to come home here in a couple of weeks. We were supposed to be in the States, but all of that got canceled because of the COVID situation, and flights just aren't. It's just not feasible to try and organize a vacation like that when flights aren't going. So, but next year.
Next year.
I'm sure you and Oregon will be there next year.
Yes, we will be here.
Well, yes, we will. I want to thank you very much for doing this. It has truly calmed me. I was not calm when we started, and now I am. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Same with me. I feel much better. Love connecting with you, John.
Yeah. This has been a good experience. So I want to thank Barscott, and I want to thank all my listeners. Gosh, I love you guys. Somebody out there made that previous episode go semi-viral, and it has led to what's going to be happening in the next few days with all these crazy cameras and whatnot. So thank you to my listeners. And with that, I say bye, everybody.
Bye, John. Thank you.
I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Yes, Yes, I am. Yes, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Yes, I am. My Lord, oh my Lord. Lord, I'm coming home.